So tonight, I'm very excited to share with you about painting tropical watercolors. Now, I live in Florida, so this is kind of what I would consider the subtropics, right? But I've also had a home in the Virgin Islands, so the US Virgin Islands, which is very tropical. I also grew up in Asia where we had pomegranates, guavas, all kinds of tropical fruits and food. Well, see, I remember a place by their food, right? So for tonight, I'm going to be showing you, introducing you to some of my favorite watercolors. But the giveaway this evening is going to be this card again, a greeting card with a print of my banana. So this is banana leaves, and there's a banana where the hand of bananas, they call them, are growing out of there. So that will be tonight's giveaway that will take place at the end of the workshop. We'll be doing the giveaway. And so this is the original artwork here that I made for this workshop. There we go. Woo! My tropical food is McDonald's. Oh my gosh, you crack me up, Critter Chops. So this is a watercolor that I did, and I'll show you the watercolors shortly that we'll be using. We'll be using tube watercolors. So last week we used the watercolors from this kit. So those were watercolor cakes or pans. And this week we're going to be I'm going to show you how to use tube watercolors for a painting similar to this. And I got my reference photo for that as well. Um, well, let me show you here. I got the reference photos for that on Pixabay. So I'll put a link to these photos from Pixabay in the article that I write on my website, which will be up Tuesday or Wednesday-ish. I'll have an article up on my website with links to these images. Oops, that goes that way. These images on Pixabay. So you can go there and click and download them as well if you want to. But I kind of used the concepts from those two images in order to paint this one. Now, also, I used this book called DIY Watercolor Jungle. So if you've been with me before, you know that I love art books. And even though I have a library of probably 300 or 400 art books, I can't help it. I keep buying them anyway. And it's great to support our artists because let me tell you, an artist pours their heart and soul into creating a book. They really do. I have friends who are artists who have written books and they're like, it's a total labor of love to write a book. So this one is DIY Watercolor Jungle. It is by Marie Boudon, Boudon. I will be linking this in the description of the video on YouTube. I'll go back later tonight or tomorrow morning, and I'll put in the links to this book and the paints that I'm going to be showing you in the supplies. So not to worry. If you want to follow along later with the video, if you want to go back and watch it again, and you want to get this book, then the links will be in the description of the video on YouTube. Now, another thing, because I live in the tropics here, another thing that I love to paint is the bird of paradise. They're so exotic. I just love the bird of paradise. So I also have in the past gone to Pixabay and found really nice, and it's Pixabay. Like I said, there'll be a link in the description of the video on YouTube when I'm finished. I'll add that in. But I have right in my neighborhood bird of paradise that grows. Now, right now, it's not flowering because it's so cold in Florida right now. I know, boo-hoo, right? While other people are like under the Arctic blast with snow and craziness. We don't have snow here. I'm in the Tampa area, but I've taken pictures of the bird of paradise in my neighborhood. I take all kinds of really like hibiscus, all kinds of cool pictures of beautiful tropical flowers. and then I paint them. So this is a painting that I did. It is available on Whatnot in the buy now. If you go look in the buy now, and feel free to make me an offer tonight as you're looking through the items that are in the buy now on Whatnot. And if you're on YouTube and you want to pop over to Whatnot to take a look at the artworks that I have available, then all you have to do is scan the QR code at the top of the screen or use the link in the description of the video and Whatnot will give you $15 to spend on the platform if you're new to Whatnot. Woohoo! So this is a watercolor that I did of the bird of paradise that's in my neighborhood. And I just took a photograph of the piece of the flower, and then I did this piece from the image that I took. And that, like I say, that is available right now, but you don't have to get quite so fancy. You can see that I drew pencil lines and everything here, right? You can see if you look up close that I drew it out with pencils, but what I do now for the most part is I just go right in because I've done bird of paradise. So once you it's good to practice um, when you first practice a subject to draw the subject. So I just use a pencil. I'll use something like this. This is a cross mechanical pencil, or I know Critter Chops called me out on the zebra pencil that I used a week or two ago. And so, feel free to draw out your subject before you paint it. And that's usually what I do when I'm first learning a subject. And then after I've done that, then I don't need the lines so much anymore. I can just go in with my brush and just paint the subject. Oh, thanks for the hearts over on YouTube. I appreciate that. Let's see. Now, let me talk about what it is that we're going to be painting on. We're going to be working with some tube watercolors. I'll show you those in a moment. But I wanted to let you know that when you're doing your initial color mixing um, with the tube watercolors to get the colors that you want, because I did lots of color mixing to get these various greens and yellows and the reds here. And so I use super cheap paper, cheap watercolor paper, in order to just test the colors as I'm mixing them. And this happens to be a Michaels product. It's 40 sheets. It's watercolor paper for kids. But you know what? Let me show you. These are some of my color experiments from earlier, just to test out the different greens. So if you are just needing to have paper to test out your colors, inexpensive watercolor paper. This one, the Creatology, happens to be an excellent, cheap watercolor paper. Not something that I would do final artworks on, but perfect for experimentation and testing out your colors. So I highly recommend something like this. In particular, this Creatology 40 sheets, great. And then for doing finished artworks, I either use 100% cotton paper, or my workhorse paper in the studio is the Canson XL watercolor paper. Now, all of these things will be linked in the description of the video on YouTube. I go back in and I add those links later tonight or tomorrow for you. So you can always come back to the video and get those links. So this is the XL watercolor. It's 140-pound watercolor paper. It is not 100% cotton, but it's still an excellent paper. And it's what you call a cold press paper. So it has a little bit of texture to the surface here. And I like that. I like the way that the paint moves around on the surface. Now, I've shown you during some of my other workshops where we talked about watercolor, my favorite smooth watercolor paper. So smooth watercolor paper is called hot press. And so this is Studio Hot Press Paper by Fabriano. It's 25% cotton, and it has a very, very smooth surface. So I'll show you here. This surface is super smooth. So if you're starting out as a watercolorist, you may want to try the hot press paper, this smooth paper, because then you won't have as much sort of moving around of the color. You'll be able to put the color where you want it, because there's not as much texture to the surface. So when you're first starting out, I would highly recommend you consider getting yourself a hot press paper for that. Now, most of the time when I'm painting, I'm using the cold press paper because I like the way the paint goes wishy-washy and runs around, and I'm looking for that effect. All right, so let me set the tonight's artwork aside and talk to you about the paints we're going to be using tonight. Now, we're going to start out, we're going to do two paintings. One is going to be the project. Well, actually, both of them have to do with this book. One is the bananas. The other is an anthurium, which is a heart-shaped flower. And I love the anthurium because they're very they're tropical, and they are um, almost synonymous with hearts because the shape of them is simply a heart. They're fantastic. And so I'll show you those projects in this book. But to do the anthurium, I'm going to show you, we're going to start with some watercolor pencils. Hey, Salmon's girl, welcome in, welcome in. So we're going to start an outline with watercolor pencils. I love when, especially if you're starting out, it's helpful with watercolor if instead of, and I said earlier, it's okay to use a pencil. Thanks for sharing, Salmon's girl. I appreciate it. Instead of using a graphite pencil to do your initial outline, consider using a watercolor pencil, because this is a pencil that in it says aquarelle right here. It says aquarelle, so that you know that it's water soluble. So you can take a color of pencil that's similar to what it is you're going to be painting, and you can do your outlines with these watercolor pencils. And then that way, as you paint, the color from the watercolor pencils will just melt right into your artwork. So that's a bit of a trick that you can do. Now, normally, the last couple of weeks, I've shown you using Christy Rice's watercolors, which are in pans like this. They come in a travel set. Love using them. Oh, Queen de Bohemian, you mean the watercolor pencils, or did you get yourself the Christy Rice set? I'm just curious. Um, yep. So I don't know which one that is. Hopefully it means you got one of those. Um, and then I had shown you before the pencils. Yeah, the pencils are fabulous. I had shown you before that I got this big 24. This is also from Christy Rice, and this is Critter Chops, who's on Whatnot. Um, and so these are Critter Chops paints. He makes his own paints. And so these are his paints on this side. And I actually used a bunch of those paints, his paints, for color mixing. I like his blues for color mixing. And I want to show you something. When you buy yellow, this is a trick. When I buy, whether it's acrylics, whether it's oil paints, whether it's watercolors, okay, any paints that you can mix together. Not so much with pastels and things, but when it comes to watercolor in particular here, you'll notice how many yellows do I have? Now, these are all different blues and greens and the red here, but you notice that I have 3 yellows. The reason is because you're going to use yellow to mix your oranges and your greens. So, and you're going to be doing that a lot usually, especially because I like to do the plants like this. So notice how many variations of green and sort of a blue that we have in here. And so you're going to be putting your yellow together with your blues to get variations in greens, because sometimes I use green right out of the tube or right out of the pan. There's a green from Critter Chops, but quite often I am color mixing my greens. And so you're going to need way more yellow, because all these blues here I mix with these yellows. So if I only had one pan of yellow, I'm telling you, I would run out of that yellow so fast. So definitely a studio hint whenever you buy yellow. Let's say that you're getting, for instance, these are the paints we're going to be using tonight, which is the Holbein watercolor. And these are the small 5 milliliter tubes. So you see this little tiny 5 milliliter tube of yellow right here. So I would get, in addition to this set that has the little ones in it, I would buy a larger version or a second 5 milliliter, like the same size of yellow, because you want to be sure you have plenty of yellow for your color mixing. Okay, so that is a studio trick. Is if I get a set, I will normally order an extra mixing yellow, which is like normally a lemon yellow or a light yellow, because you're going to use your yellow together with the reds and the yellow together with the blues to get your greens and your oranges. Okay, so definitely that's one of my recommendations is you always get that extra yellow. And Critter Chops was probably like, why the heck is she ordering all those yellows? But that's why. There, let me show you, for instance, here. So these are handmade watercolors. You see all these different blues right here? So they give me all different kinds of greens when I mix them with the yellow. And so I do that a lot. I do a lot of that mixing. And that's actually, like I said, what I did when I created this piece was I used that tube yellow or I was using Critter Chops yellow together with a whole bunch of different blues to get all of these different greens and blues here. Okay. So that is the first thing we're going to be doing is using these watercolor tubes. Now, over here is black. We're not going to be using the black for our project tonight. And then there's a raw umber and let me see, burnt umber and burnt sienna. These two right here, we're probably not going to use those tonight either, but they're good. They're good. They're good to have in your set for other types of things, other types of subjects. So definitely, I'm not poo-pooing them. We just won't be using them for what we're doing tonight. Now, I have some of my favorite additional tube watercolors. So this is your set of 12, right? Your basic set. So this is what I recommend if you're starting out. This is an excellent set to get. Let me show you the front of the box again. It's Holbein is the brand out of Japan. Watercolors. HWC, Holbein Watercolors. Holbein also makes gouache, which is an opaque watercolor, and acrylic gouache and acrylic paints. So that's why I wanted you to know if you see the box and it says, or the tube and it says HWC, that's Holbein Watercolors. Okay. Excellent starter set. Fantastic. Now, for the subject that we're doing tonight, the tropics, I have a couple of tubes of both uh, the Holbein watercolors and a couple of other brands that are going to supplement that set of 12. And the first one is this, again, it says HWC on it here, Holbein watercolor. Oop, there it is right there, HWC. And that is Hooker's Green. It's called Hooker's Green. So this is an excellent all-around green anytime you're working with doing, what is it called? Plants. Okay. Anytime you're doing plants or landscapes, sap green and Hooker's Green are two greens that a lot of landscape or floral artists will use, and it's not in this set. Okay. So again, that is called Hooker's Green. All right. And then let me see if it tells you here if it is transparent or not. It's not telling me if it's transparent or not. It's okay. It is transparent. This, and then this one, okay, y'all. I've never found this one in a set, like any of Holbein's sets, but, but, it is probably my all-time favorite blue, and it is called Peacock Blue. Again, I'll put the links to these paints in the description of the video on YouTube tonight or tomorrow, so you'll be able to find them. I'll make sure I put links to them. I checked to be sure that you can still get peacock blue, because sometimes colors come in and then they are no longer available, and you can't get the paints anymore. But I was very happy to find that peacock blue from Holbein Watercolors is still available. So excellent for mixing your greens with your yellows. Okay. I've shown this before when we talked about watercolor. It's my favorite green blue color. So it can be used for marine type environments as well as for plant type environments. And it's called Cascade Green. So Cascade Green. The cool thing is when you use it with a lot of water, it separates and gives you like a blue turquoisey rim around the outside of the color. And just one of my all-time favorite colors is the Daniel Smith Cascade Green. And then the last color that, yes, it's a color that's not available anymore, although um, a lot of companies are trying to reproduce this color, and they are, uh, so you may or may not find it on the market. If you do find a tube of this, don't freak out if it's like $120 for a tube or something like that. The reason is because it's this pigment is no longer available. And that happens sometimes with paints in general, whether it's watercolors, acrylics, um, or oil paints. Sometimes you just can't get a color anymore because the pigment is no longer available. It's either exhausted wherever it was sourced from, or it may be too toxic to produce, which they may not have known in the beginning, but now they know now. So this one is quinacridone gold. It does say it, right? Yep, quinacridone gold. This is an old Winsor Newton, right? Yep, Winsor Newton tube. This is an old tube. This tube is probably 20 years old, something like that, 15 years old. And it is more than worth its weight in gold. This one. And so again, that's a color called quinacridone gold. So if you're ever shopping for art supplies, if you're at a yard sale and someone has some watercolor paints, look for this color, quinacridone gold. Some people call it quin gold, Quin. And because this color is discontinued, and people will pay a lot of money to get a hold of this paint. And I will show you why when we start painting, because this is the palette we're going to be using tonight. So you need to have a plate or a palette or someplace that you can mix your colors on. And by the way, I appreciate the thumbs up over on YouTube. If more of you could just pop over and do the thumbs up for me, that would be awesome. Thank you for your help. So this is a ceramic palette. Of course, you can also have a plastic palette. This is a different ceramic palette that I have. This is cool because it's a slant palette with these up here. They slant down, and I use my liquid watercolors in this one. This is a plastic slant palette, right? So you want lots of room for mixing your colors, and they can come in either your palettes can, or sometimes I just use a plate. So at the thrift store, I look for uniquely shaped plates. Maybe it's a long skinny plate or something like that. If it's white, I buy it and I use it for color mixing. So this is definitely one of my favorites, but this is the one we're going to use tonight because there's a lot of room here for mixing colors. And notice there's still a color in there, right? You know what that color is? It is quinacridone gold. Now, this palette had all different kinds of colors in here earlier today. And the beautiful thing about working with a ceramic palette is it's super easy to rinse it out, to rinse the colors out. So that's what I did with all the colors except for quinacridone gold. because quinacridone gold is a rare color that's not available anymore. And so I certainly don't want to lose a big chunk like that. Will last me a long time. It'll get me through a whole painting or more. So I didn't dare take that out, right? In terms of brushes for tonight, of course, we'll be using my favorite Princeton Velvet Touch brush, which has a nice tip to it. It's nice and snappy. It's a synthetic brush, but they hold up so dang well. I have a couple of different sizes here. So this is the size 10 and this is the size 6. But I have from, I think, a size 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I'm not sure if I have the 12 or not. Now, a unique type of brush that makes some really neat marks. So let me show you in this painting here that I did of the bird of paradise. You see these little marks in the back right here that look like little triangles? They're made by a special brush called a cat's tongue brush. So I'm going to show you right now. This is a Christy Rice. So I showed you before the watercolors by Christy Rice. She also makes her own brush sets. And this is a cat's tongue from Christy Rice. And you see how the tip comes up like that and it sort of creates a triangle. So that's one size from Christy Rice. This is a size 1 and this is a size 6. So this one's a lot larger. This one, the size 6, is what I used for this painting to get those little background leaves in there. And so that's the larger Christy Rice cat's tongue. And then um, this is from Hobby Lobby. So I was shocked to find that Hobby Lobby has fabulous brushes, and they this one, they call it a pointed oval wash. But there's a nice big cat's tongue for you, meaning it comes up in a triangle like that. And I've used these and I love these brushes. They perform very well. They're Master's Touch from over at Hobby Lobby. Here's a smaller one. This is a size 4, they call it. And this is a size 6. So you can see you can get different sizes to create those little background leaves. These work great. So we will try that later. This is a Neptune from Princeton. And see, they call it an oval wash, but it has that same sort of shape. The difference is this Neptune brush that they call a wash brush. When you get it wet, it's a very soft, it's a synthetic swirl. And it's super soft. So what's going to happen is it's going to fluff up when you put water on it, and it's not going to maintain that nice cat's tongue tip to it for you to do the painting with. So I wouldn't recommend this kind of cat's tongue mop brush or wash brush because it's too fluffy. All right. Something like this, where it's synthetic hairs and it's more stiff. Do you see how it's super stiff there? That will help to maintain that shape. So we'll try that out when we're doing the banana leaves to give us the pointy ends of the banana leaves. All right, and I think that is it. I am using a one of these, which I'll have linked in the description of the video, and they're just that's my brush rest. I have several of them. Oh, I do have a detail brush here. This is a Christy Rice, so it comes in one of the Christy Rice sets. If I need to get in there to do small dots. And then what I had shown last week, this is a scrubber brush. It's called a blender by Princeton Velvet Touch as well. And it helps me to lift out any mistakes that I might make, or if I have too much paint on the surface and I want to lift it out a little bit. I use that blender or scrubber to do that. Okay, so let's go ahead and we're gonna get started and go over top of the table. Oh, I'm so excited. I love to paint. Can you tell? All right, let me move my book out of the way here just for a moment. We're going to get back to the book. Actually, let me show you real quick before we go overhead. We are going to start out with the Anthurium flower. Remember I said they're kind of like a heart? Look at that. They're so pretty. So we're going to do some Anthurium, and then we're going to move into the banana. You can see here that I have containers with water. Oh, this is one of my favorite containers. It's a collapsible silicone container from Faber-Castell, and I love it because with the tulip edge, can you see the little tulip edge here? You can rest your brushes here like this, and then let them dry. So I just love that. Love, love, love that. Because it's helpful if you let your brushes dry in a horizontal fashion like this, rather than up like this, because if there's water in the tip here, it can go down into the what's called the ferrule, the metal part of the brush, and it can loosen the glue that's in here. I don't know if any of you have ever had that happen before, but yeah. I've had, the tops of a brush just come right off because if you don't dry them properly and they get lots of water in here, they can get damaged. So it's helpful if you put them flat like that in order for them to dry. So these are very handy. And then these are just, what do you call those? They're little mason jars, but they have little handles on them. Aren't they fun? Those are great. Okay, so let's move them up out of the way so you can still kind of see them. I'm going to move this one toward the middle. Now here also I have a dropper, and I like to keep a dropper in one of my clean waters, and that's because sometimes if you need to rehydrate your watercolors, it's helpful to have a dropper handy. We are going to start out by squeezing out some of these paints, and then this is the paper that we're going to be working on with that. Now it looks like, see, I normally work with a pad in the background, but it looks like, I probably don't need that tonight with what I'm doing. So that is going to go, that's just a sketch pad. Okay, so let's move this up, make sure you can still see it. Yes. Okay, lovely. And then there's our papers. Perfect. Now, here's what we're going to do. We're going to start by squeezing out some of the paints that I know that we're going to use. You don't have to worry about watercolor drying out because, in fact, watercolor will rehydrate with water. So you don't have to worry about, oh my gosh, is it drying? It's not like acrylic. Acrylic, you can't put it out and leave it out and like go have lunch and come back because it's going to dry out and then it cannot be rehydrated. But in this case, watercolors like this can be rehydrated. Okay, so we are going to be working with, of course, the yellow, right? And normally what I do with my palette is I try to only squeeze a little bit of paint in there because I can always add more, except for the yellow because I use lots of yellow. So we've got the quinacridone gold. That's this one right here is here. So this is just such a beautiful warm color that just lends an incredible brilliance to your work. Okay, so there is our, you see, oh, they are so creamy. Beautiful. I put more yellow than I would normally put for the other colors because I'm just going to be mixing with a lot of the yellows. Now, the next one I'm going to put out here is called Vermilion. And I'm going to start putting it down here because I don't need as much as up here. So here is a Vermilion, which looks like a brilliant orange. And some paints you're going to notice say hue. So this one says vermilion hue. The original vermilion is toxic. So oftentimes you'll see a color and it says hue, and that's because rather than producing the original color from a formula from antiquity, which is toxic, they come up with chemical combinations that make up that hue, but that don't have the toxicity. And also on these tubes, if you're concerned about toxicity, there's a little AP mark right here on this tube, and that's AP non-toxic. It's an organization that manufacturers can have their products tested with, and then if it's given the AP seal, then that means that it's non-toxic. So it's, if that's important to you, you can look at those labels to see. So that's the vermilion. This is called Crimson Lake. This is a kind of red, very dark red. And why do we need the red and the orange? Well, because when we get to the doing this painting, we're going to need that in this area right here. Okay, we're going to need some yellow ochre. So yellow ochre is an earth type, a very earthy color. And I'm going to put that in here. It's, if it's not opaque, it's going to be semi-opaque. So there is a difference in your different colors with opacity. So their transparency and their opacity. And yellow ochre is an earthy color that is generally either opaque or semi-opaque. Now we're going to skip the burnt sienna and the burnt umber, and we're going to move over to the permanent green, which is so cute. Look at this permanent green. You see how bright it is? Oh my gosh. Now, the interesting thing with the permanent green is these tubes will say somewhere on them um, what the makeup, the chemical makeup is of it. And this is a PY, which means it's a yellow. You can look up these pigment codes and see what the chemical composition of your paints are. And then, so it's a yellow and a green, PG7. So that's what gives us this kind of bright yellow green. I'll bring these up closer once I've filled the palette, okay? Then the next green is a, woo, it has a high tinting strength, and it's called Viridian Hue. So we're going to put this one in here, Viridian Hue. It looks super dark, but it's actually really transparent. So you don't need a lot of it. You only need a tiny bit of it when you're working with it. Wow, because it has a high tinting strength. Then we're also going to put some of this cobalt. Oh, no, we're not done with our greens, are we? We have hooker green and we have cascade green. So let's take this tube of hooker's green. You're going to notice it's very dark. That's because it's also transparent. There we go. Dink. And so it's a beautiful transparent green color. And then cascade green, which like I said, is going to separate. The cascade green is fabulous. You know what? I'm going to put the cascade green up here because I just love it so much. Love, love, love it so much. Oh, let's see. These are the greens here, right? So let me put the cascade green here. You'll see when I swatch it for you. Oh my gosh, the cascade green is just so stunning. And then let's move to the peacock blue. So we're going to put some of the peacock. Now, what happens over time, it's helpful if you continuously squeeze up because then it's less likely to get hard. Like this is now hard from not having, I didn't squeeze it up the way I should have the last time I used it. Oh my gosh. You don't need much of this peacock green, peacock blue, but it is, oh, you're going to see why it's my favorite blue. And then there are two blues in this set. We're going to use, now I got a little bit of this cascade green over here. So I'm just going to use a brush and I'm going to take it out like that. Okay. Oops. Ah, my paper towels fell down. When I do watercolor, I generally have at least one paper towel in my hand. So let's go ahead and wipe that out. It's a beautiful thing. with watercolor. You just clean it up with a little bit of water. There we go. So this is cobalt blue. Now it says cobalt blue hue or imitation, okay? Because cobalt, you don't want to be working with a lot of cobalt. So there's our cobalt blue right there. And this is Prussian blue. Prussian blue. So Prussian blue is a super deep, 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 deep blue. Beautiful for getting your shadows, to use a Prussian blue. Some people, instead of using Prussian blue, they'll use something called Payne's gray. Prussian blue has a little more blue to it. Payne's gray has a little, it looks a little more black. Now, another thing that I will be using along the way is some of this Chinese white. So I'm just going to put a little bit of Chinese white in here. And like I said, if it's not enough, you can always come back to your tubes. But there we go. We're going to skip. So we're skipping the black, we're skipping the burnt umber, and we're skipping the burnt sienna from the set. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and put this back on here. But this is how I would set up for a painting session, just like this. You know, sometimes you need a little help from your friends like that. Okay, so let's just do a little bit of swatching so you can see what these colors look like. Remember, we're using the super cheap paper here. And there we go. So let me just, I'm going to use this cat's tongue for the swatching. I'm going to start with just the, they're using a light yellow. Okay. Whoa, super bright. So you see how bright that yellow is? Wow. And it's also very pigmented. That's why I wanted to introduce you to the Holbein set, because the Holbein watercolors, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. You're going to say, Tristina, those are a little expensive, but if you're, trust me, if you're starting out, buy the expensive paint in the small tubes. It's going to go a long way because it's so highly pigmented. You're going to love this set. You are going to fall in love with it, as I did. The color is just wow. Wow. Now, if you want to warmify that color, because this is what we would call a cool yellow, if you want to warmify it, that's what I use the this yellow ochre for. I use the yellow ochre color, which is very earthy, to add in with my bright yellow. And what'll happen is you'll get a much warmer yellow. So if what you're looking to do is warm up your yellow, just add a little bit of that yellow ochre to it. I use yellow ochre whenever I want to warmify a color. If a color's a little too bright, I'm like, you know, I need to scale that back a little bit, then the yellow ochre is definitely your friend. Um, okay, I'm going to show you the quinacridone gold here, the one that's discontinued, but that everybody loves. Oh, the interesting thing is, and you might say, well, Tristina, that just looks like another yellow. It looks like another yellow here, but if I layer my yellows, so let's say that that dried, and then I layer it a little bit more with another layer, which is not dry yet, but you're going to see, because I'm adding more, that you get this rich, rich, rich kind of browny yellow. And it's a brilliant color for glazing with over top of your other colors when you want to get that glow of maybe the sun setting on the greens that are in front of it. You can use that to warmify everything. It's amazing, amazing. Okay, when it comes to the, oh, let me put this out here just by itself, the yellow ochre. So you see how the yellow ochre has that sort of very earthy, earthy color there. It's a light, it's a yellow brown, I would call it. Okay, and then this is the vermilion. So the vermilion is like a cross between an orange and a red. Eh, because I'm not using it very strongly, it's looking more orange here. There you go. It's kind of a very strong orange. And then this, oh, let's get it a little cleaner. This is the Crimson Lake. Now the Crimson Lake is going to look very magenta-like or very violet. You see how violet that looks? It's like a super, super, super deep pink. Um, what when I want it, because you might say, Tristina, that there isn't a red in the set. Well, the way that you get a red, a beautiful transparent red, is you combine a little bit of this pink with some of this vermilion right here. And then you can adjust your reds just like that. So there, my dears, is a transparent, luminous red. And that's how you get it, by combining these two, the vermilion and the Crimson Lake, together. And that's exactly what I did when I was creating this part here of the banana. Okay, is if I needed red, I combine those two together to get something that you might think of more of a traditional red. Okay, because sometimes you look at a set and go, how come they made those decisions? Well, if you understand color mixing, then it makes more sense. Here is what's called permanent green light. And I look at that and I go, holy kashmoli, y'all. That is super bright. So if you want a color that's super bright green, like a lime green, let's say I was painting candy and I want that lime green color, there you go. That's the permanent green light. What do I do if I want to knock that down a little bit and have it be more earthy and not have it be so bright in your face? Well, of course, I would grab a little bit of my yellow ochre. So yellow ochre is a workhorse, and I would combine it with the yellow, with the permanent green, and then you're going to get something that looks a little more olive or a little more natural, right? So that's how you warmify, because by itself, that green is super cool. But when you add the yellow ochre, that helps to warmify it. Hey, let's do this. Let's put some of that bright green here. And then let's add a little bit of the quinacridone gold, since that's also kind of a warm color, and see what happens. Kind of the same thing, but even a little prettier right there. So this is what I do in my studio all day. I'm constantly, whether I'm working with watercolors, or let me show you, this is a project I'm working on with acrylics. I'm constantly color mixing to get colors, just to see how the colors are coming out when I have a project to do. Okay, so this one right here is Viridian Green, and this is a Viridian Green hue, so it's an imitation. And again, it looks very artificial, right? That color's super artificial, but it's a beautiful color for color mixing. So let's take a little bit more of it here. You know what I'm gonna do, right? What am I gonna do? I'm gonna pop in and I'm gonna grab some of the yellow ochre and I'm gonna drop that in there. And now I have a very exciting sort of blue-green right there. I could use the regular yellow as well, but both colors are quite cool. And so when I use the regular yellow, I get a color that looks very similar to this light green right here. Okay, that's the fun of color mixing. All right, let's do the next one right here. This is the Hooker's Green. And you can see it's much more forest-like, right? I imagine this being like up in like pine trees when it's springtime and they're beautifully bright. They're like a gorgeous green color. And that's very similar to what I have in here in my Bird of Paradise. like that. So you can use it straight up the way it comes, or of course, I'm always color mixing it. So let's warmify it a little bit. And then we've got very much an olivey color right there. See the olive color going on? Beautiful. So you can just get you can start with this hooker green and just get all kinds of variations there. All right, the next one that I'm going to show you is the Cascade Green. This was the Daniel Smith, not the Holbein. Ooh, there we go. Okay, that is the what's called the mass tone, meaning like right out of the tube, thick color. But the real magic in Cascade Green is when you put a lot of water into it. And what happens is it separates. And then you're going to see a green and a turquoise in there together. And it granulates. So it gives you an uneven color surface. And I love that. Love, love, love that effect. Not everybody likes that effect. Some people just like more of a solid effect. But I like the granulation effect. And that's what I get with the lots of water with the Cascade Green. Now, this is the cobalt blue that came out of the set of 12. Stunning color. Is this the cobalt blue? Nope, this is the peacock blue. Sorry. This is the extra color I was telling you to get, the peacock blue. Wow. Super bright, super bright. But the reason that I love this light peacock blue is because of the way it mixes with your yellow to get incredible greens. You can just get an incredible range. Let's take some of this here. You can get an incredible range of greens by starting with your peacock blue, at least for the tropics anyway. And then this one, let's see what this one is. This one was the cobalt blue. Now, I'm going to bring it up a little closer. You see how this one is a lighter blue and this one is a deeper blue? So I would, I would envision this color blue, the peacock blue, like in your waters, like if you were looking at the ocean in the water that's not as deep, and then this cobalt blue would be in the waters that are much deeper. You see there? It also mixes beautiful greens with the yellow. It's just they're going to be deeper greens, okay? See there? So that's just a deeper green. And that's because this is a lighter blue and a deeper blue. And the last blue, the last color that we have out here on the palette besides white is this is the Prussian blue. Oh my gosh, this is so dark. The Prussian blue is quite dark. That's the darkest one. So if you want to create shadows for your banana leaves, you're going to dip into that Prussian blue. And then when you mix a little bit of yellow in with that, you're immediately going to get a dark green. And that dark green is what you're going to use for your shadows. Okay. So we've got lighter greens for your leaves that are more in the sunshine. And then you've got these darker blues to mix with the yellows to get your darker greens. Okay, so we can just have a whole blast with all of these different colors here. Now we're going to start out with the Anthurium. So remember, this is my cheap, cheap, cheap watercolor paper, perfect for doing this kind of fun testing and color mixing on. So the next thing we're going to do, is we're going to use a piece of the hot press paper. So remember I said the hot press paper is smooth. This is the Fabriano hot press. So I actually have a piece that's cut in half here. And I'm going to do this. And I do need to put something behind it because my table, there's the middle of the table's right here and it kind of goes like this. So I need a solid backing for it. There we go. So this is the cold press textured watercolor. This is the smooth watercolor. And we're going to do the Anthurium real quick on the smooth watercolor. So this is where I want to tell you that it is helpful to use your watercolor pencils. And let me move this up just a little bit more. so it's more in frame there. Okay, so since I'm doing a red flower, heart-shaped flower, I'm gonna start with the, let's see what color this is. Does it say on there? Boo-boo-boo. Nope, it doesn't say what the color is, but it looks, well, let's see. This one looks more like an orangey red right here. And if you don't know what the color is, what do? You just grab your test paper right here. You put the color out. You use, I'm going to use a clean brush because that has a bunch of, see how the water is green right there? So, oh, nice. See how that gives me a beautiful red? So I'm going to use that pencil to outline the Anthurium flower. So let's go back to the book real quick so we can see what we're doing. And that's why I said I love, 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 love my art books. And even though I've been painting for over 20 years, I reference my art books every week. Okay, y'all. Every week I'm constantly in my art books. So I'm taking inspiration from other artists. All right, so back in here, the amazing book, okay, DIY Watercolor Jungle by Marie Boudin. And I will have the link to it in the description of the video later tonight. But great for like that tropical feel. Okay, so the second one here is going to be the Anthurium. There we go. So Anthurium are just shaped like a heart, but you want to be sure the Anthurium has this spike that comes out of the middle of it that is like a white, green, beige color. And you're literally just going to create a heart. Let me see. That's it for there. But notice that she's got just all kinds of beautiful, 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 like there's an Anthurium in the background there. Oh, lovely, lovely, lovely. Okay, so we're just gonna do we're gonna do, maybe I'll do 2 or 3. You'll see, this will work up quickly. And basically we're just doing the shape of a heart. So I'm gonna put my main one right here, like this. And then from this center area right here, don't worry, I'll bring this up closer to you. You're going to have this piece that comes out like this. You're going to have a piece that comes out like that. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my eraser. Where is my white eraser? I don't know where my white eraser is. So I have a Utrecht gum eraser. I'm going to get rid of part of that. That's why it's nice to use a watercolor pencil because you can somewhat erase it. Okay, there we go. So there's that. For that one, I actually want to make it just a little bit thinner. So that flower. So I'm going to bring it just a little bit more like this. Boop. There we go. So there's the just quickie drawing. And then I want to do another one going up this way over here. So I'm going to do this. And you're drawing hearts. It's so easy. And then you're going to draw the stem, the stamen part that's in the middle there. Okay, there's a second one. And then the other one is going to be partly behind. So we're going to bring this one over here. Oh, that's a little too far over. You want, when you're designing your artwork, bear in mind that it's going to likely go in a mat. So what I do is I have mats near, at hand. And hold on just a second. And I have all different size mats. See that? So I have narrow mats, I have standard mats and little. So this fits a 4x6, this fits a 5x7, and this fits a 6x9. Okay. Yeah, I'm a nut that way. And so let's see if we do it as nope, that's a standard 5x7. So it's going to have to go with this one right here. Oh, don't fall over now. like that. Okay, so it's going to go with this kind of skinny one that'll fit a 6x9 inside it. Okay, well, let me just grab these so that, oh, yeah, everything's falling because that's typical for my studio. Hold on just a moment here. And let me do it with the black so you can see a little bit better. Okay. And it is okay when you're doing your design if part of your design goes off the page. That's fine. Don't, no muss, no fuss, don't stress. Okay. Whoop. Okay. So let's go back to that's going to work. It's going to work fine where I have it. And we'll go back to the pencil and we're going to bring this. Let's assume that it kind of comes like this. And then this is going to go here. And then this is going to come around like this. Okay. So now we've got 3 leaves. Normally I do 1, 3, 5. When I was young, I lived in Asia and my parents took, my mother took flower arranging classes. And that's one of the things they always taught in the Asian water or flower arranging classes was that you want to do your compositions with odd numbers. So in this case, I've got the 3 here. And now that I've got my basic design in and I've used the watercolor pencil, so I'm putting watercolors right on top of it. I don't need to worry that the watercolor pencil will just melt right into the background. Ooh, thanks for all the likes over on YouTube this evening. I appreciate it. Now, this brush to me is too small for what it is that I'm trying to do. So I am going to switch it up. I'm going to switch it up. This was the size 6 Princeton Velvet Touch. I'm going to switch it up to this size 10, or why don't we use this one? The Master's Touch Cat's Tongue. They call it a pointed oval. Let's use that one. What the heck? We'll give it a try. Okay, so remember that I've got 2 different colors here, the vermilion and the crimson lake, and I also want a red, don't I? Now what I'm going to lay the red in first, and I want to avoid the areas where the stamen are of the flowers, okay? So I'm going to start, I generally start with the lightest color first, and then I come back on with other colors. So first I'm going to get this area just wet with water. So I'm getting the flowers just wet with water, and that's so that when I put the colors on, they'll kind of explode over the surface. So just clean water. Yeah. Try to avoid this middle portion of the flower, okay? There we go. And a little bit more water. So I'll bring it up so you can see what I'm doing here. Okay. The thing with the cat's tongue is if you want it to be, it's nice and wide here, but if you twist it that way, then it'll take up less space. So when I go into the skinny areas, I just turn it sideways and then I get a lesser area. Okay, so there you go, right there. You can see those. And this one's almost dry already, which always happens. So I'm just gonna go put a little bit more water in there. It depends on how thirsty your paper is, how quickly the water's going to absorb. So I do recommend a watercolor paper for this and not a mixed media paper for it because you can put more water on the watercolor paper. It'll tolerate the water better. Okay, there we go. That's just so we get a little bit of exploding going on. So I'm going to start with the vermilion color like this. Let's get a little more color on the brush there because I'm going to layer my colors in here. Okay. Oh, there's a whole bunch of paint on there. Look at that. I'm just going to put it in there like that. So the flower that's on top is going to likely have a little more sunshine on it. So this one uh, will be a brighter, lighter color. And the ones, this one in the back is likely going to be my darkest color. So I'm going to be adding more layers onto the one in the back. So you see how the water has allowed it to sort of flow. I don't want it to be even. I don't need it to be even. Let's go with this one right here. The fact that you already have water on your surface means that it will cause the paint to flow and it'll be a lighter color than what you might expect. But that's okay. It's okay. I like to build up the layers, so I start with a lighter color like this. And then the one in the background, I'm going to go a little bit heavier, but actually I'm going to mix a little bit of this Crimson Lake in with it so that I'm going to make the color slightly more red. And then here we go. So it's still that sort of light orange, but with a little bit of the red blended in. Okay. Whoop. We're especially going to making it darker where these two are next to each other, right? So no fuss, no muss. Don't stress when you're painting, y'all. Just have fun. It's just paper and paint. If you don't have to worry about making it a masterpiece. You can always take this piece of paper and throw it away and start again. So there is no stress in painting, right? I know some people get stressed when they're like, I've worked on it for a week and, I might ruin it. It's like, well, it's just paint and paper, y'all. It's just paint and paper. Relax. Okay. So now I'm going to go back to the first one that I worked on and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do the orange, but I'm going to pick up some of that red, that crimson, and I'm blending my colors. Blending, blending. There we go. So I'm just laying one on top of the other like this. Okay, that's how you're going to get and use lots of water because it is watercolor. And that's one of the beauties of watercolor is just to let the color, you're a partner in the painting. All right, together with your art supplies, let the water do its work. A lot of the work there. Okay, there we go. So now we're starting to see some variation in that, right? I love the variation. Some people like solid colors, and so you wouldn't use this technique if what you want is a solid color, but I like the variation. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing up here. I'm going to drop in a little more color here. If it's not all the way dry, like this one's all the way dry, not all the way dry. So I don't know if you can notice there, but it's pushing. Now that I'm putting more water and paint on here, it's pushing the other color out of the way and lifting that other color back up. So sometimes you want to grab a heat gun and you may want to heat it in order to have it more dry before you go in with that second layer. But, we're just scooting along here. We're not going to worry about it. Okay, there we go. Nice. Oh, they're so pretty. Fun, 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 fun. So there's the one in the back there. And then this one, I want it to be really dark right here where it's shadowed, right? So I actually will turn my paper often to get to the right angle. And I'm going to come in just with this Crimson Lake. Okay. I'm going to come in with Crimson Lake. Here we go. And I'm going to lay it in here to get my darker shadows. Now, if I want a really dark shadow, what I would do is I would add a little bit of blue to that red, right? Because then I'm going to get a purple. There we go. And I'll put a little bit here so that I have more of the darker color right there. All right, so that's going to give me a little bit darker, and then I'm going to go back into my mix here in order to just get that variation going. All right, nice. I just love it when the paint spreads like that. Oh my gosh. It's like use the water, y'all. Use the beauty of the water with the watercolor. Okay, and I'm going to get closer to that stem in the middle there. All right. So now I'm going to grab a little bit of the blue because I kind of want to make a purple. So I'm going to grab a little bit of this dark blue, not quite as dark as the Prussian blue. I'm not ready to go that dark yet. But this is the cobalt blue that came in the little tube in this set right here. And so I'm combining it with some of that Crimson Lake so I can get a purple. Let's do a little more Crimson Lake. There we go. So now I've got a purple, just like that. So let's take that purple and I'm going to drop a little bit more of the purple into here. Right? I'm just deepening those shadows just a little bit. And then I'm going to drop some more of that purple in over here. Just so I can give the concept of, oh, this one's back behind that one, right? You see how the purple drops in there and gives you a little more drama. Now, normally I would wait a little bit longer so that so I can work with the push and pull of the watercolor for that purple color. But you know, we're moving right along here. Now, see how I said this was still wet, and so the colors sort of pushed each other aside, and I don't have the same variation in that one. So let's go back up there with some more of this vermilion and that one there, crimson. See if we can get a little more variation going. There we go. See how I'm just flicking my brush, right? Just have fun, flick the brush. What I'm trying to do is get more contrast right here near where that stamen's going to go. And I want to do the same thing down here, right? I want to get a little more contrast in underneath there where there's going to be a shadow. So let's pull some of the crimson and drop that in there. A little bit darker. There we go. Now I'm going to show you, sometimes I'll tap, 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 tap in order to get the color in there a little bit darker. Tap, 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 tap. Let's see how I did that. So that'll help delineate or give you a nice shadow line there. And a little more water, same color on the brush, a little more water, just so I can feather it out. Sort of blend it in. There we go. And I want to get a little more color back in here. Oh, so fun. Is that fun? Oh, thanks for being here with me for the evening. Oh, hearts. Thank you. Thank you over on Whatnot. I appreciate the hearts. I just love to paint. I love to paint. What can I tell you? Now, I'm seeing that I'm just looking at it. Sometimes you want to either walk away, like go get a drink of water, come back, let it dry just a little bit, look at it. You can speed along the drying. I have a heat tool next to me. So, you know, I can do this and start the um, drying going a little bit more. And then like here, I want a little more of this vermilion over here. So I'm just grabbing some more vermilion and dropping it in. over on this side because I want all the flowers to speak to each other, right? So I do want some more of that vermilion in there. And the same is true up here. This is beginning to look a little too pink and I want a little more vermilion up in there. So I'm going to bring a little bit more in. And that way they'll have variation, but they'll also, it's like, yeah, they're all from the same plant. Okay, there you go. Now, this is going to get set aside because I want these areas to dry before I go in and I put the middle part in the flowers. Um, ooh, actually, let's do some of those fun leaves in the background that I was telling you about that the cat's tongue is good for. We're not going to touch this. We're going to go around the outside of it. So I'm going to take the large cat's tongue. This is from Master's Touch size 6. Okay, let's get a little bit of this, my favorite Cascade Green. And then let's take some of this Hooker's Green. I like that combination. And we're just going to see the shape right there. We're just going to lay in some leaves. And then a little bit more. What I'm doing is I'm putting it down and then as I lift it, I twist the head and then that helps to give me these interesting shapes to the leaves. But I like the way that the cat's tongue does the ends of them. And notice I'm just picking up other colors as I go along. I don't, I contaminate everything. It's true. It's true. I end up contaminating all my colors, but I'm okay with that. Let's do some light green over here where there's more light on this one. If I wanted the leaves to look a little bit smaller, then I would use the smaller cat's tongue. So let's put another one a little bit lighter here. Let's go up this way and twist. There we go, right? And then I'm just going to go with the smaller ones so I can show you some smaller leaves. Notice that the leaves are not complete. They're not finished. You can always go back in with a detail brush later and define the shapes a little bit better. Right now, we're just getting some fun color down on the paper. So here is the Master's Touch again. This is the smaller cat's tongue, size 4. And let's get some more of that Hooker's Green. Oh, and I'm gonna blend it in with some of the Cascade Green. And I'm gonna put like a smaller one in the background there. And then let's come up here. I'll put another small one in the background. Now, when I did this one, you'll notice that I did a lot of little marks. I didn't pull it. So I literally just used the tip and did this and created some leaves this way without pulling on it. Do you see how it makes those little triangles? Oh, hello, Zara over on YouTube says, I'm Turkish and I'm a paint teacher. Awesome. Welcome, welcome. Okay, so let's do, I actually feel like that's it. Like that's all I need to do right now. Don't be overzealous. You can always go back and add more later. I'm just going to leave it at that for right now. Okay, and put my brushes in there. But isn't that fun? I love doing those little pointed tips to suggest leaves like that. It's so much fun. Okay, so we're gonna set this aside to dry a little bit and we're gonna go to the banana. Banana! and we're going to do the banana here on the, this is the cold press. The other one was the hot press, so it's smooth. This is the Canson XL watercolor cold pressed. It says cold pressed right there. 140-pound, beautiful paper. Um, this is what I use for my studio. This is actually the paper that I painted the piece on here, is that Canson XL cold press. So what I do when I'm going to do a painting like this is I refer to pictures. So I use multiple pictures in this case to get a feel for how the bananas move and are positioned. And so I'm going to, let me see, I'm looking to make sure that you can see everything. Yes. Okay, actually, I think I'm going to bring it down just a little bit so you get just a little bit closer. Whoops. Will you go closer? Yeah, there we go. So let's move that over there, move that over there. Okay, I think you can still see everything. Yes. All right. So was there a question? Something I thought, oh, for some reason it's not my chat over on, oh, thank you. Beautiful green. Florida Glass Girl says she was in Critter Chop show today on Whatnot. Did you pick up anything exciting? Florida Glass Girl. I mean, I just love his stuff. Uh, sorry, I'm late. Had to do dinner. Okay. I just, for some reason, so she got kicked out. Okay. Yes, way too much. Okay. So let's lay down some um, green, yellow and green leaves. And that again also comes from this book right here, DIY Watercolor Jungle. And she shows you in here how to do banana leaves, banana. So this is her artwork of banana leaves. And I just added the hand of bananas in the middle. But that's what we're going to do right now is some banana leaves. So love, love, love this book. What I like is she's showing you here how to do the layering of the shape of the bananas. And that's one of the beautiful things with watercolor is you can put some in and then let it dry and then put some more in and it will sit on top. But sometimes you get some happy accidents where the underlayers rehydrate and it's a lot of fun. So we're going to use my larger Princeton Velvet Touch. This is a size 10. This is the one that's, I mean, if I'm working on this size, this is my workhorse, a 10 or a 12, something like that. So let's go ahead and we're going to start with some yellow leaves. And I kind of have to have an idea of where I want to put my banana. So my bunch of bananas will be here in the middle. So I'm going to build some leaves around there. Okay. And if you look at what she's doing here, you see how she's kind of building a couple of banana leaves around. So let's do that. And let's let the Anthurium dry over there. So we're going to start with this. I don't want to go with this bright yellow that came out of the set. If you were not here earlier, we're working with the Holbein. Oops, come here, Holbein. Holbein watercolors, set of 12, along with a couple of extra ones that I threw in there. The Holbein Peacock Blue, the Holbein Hooker's Green, my favorite Daniel Smith Cascade Green, and the quinacridone Gold. And that one's a Winsor Newton quinacridone Gold. But this is the Holbein watercolors, perfect for a starter set because it's professional grade watercolor, but it comes in these little tubes. And you can see I have plenty of watercolor out on here, and I only squeezed a little bit from these tubes. So this set will last you a long time. Excellent quality watercolors right there. Okay, and the reason that I'm using this palette is because it gives me a lot of areas here to color mix in, and I love that. So we are going to start out. That yellow is just, woo! like in your face, way too bright. So I have to tone it down before I get started with it. And I was showing earlier that you can tone it down by grabbing some of this yellow ochre. So I'm throwing a little bit of yellow ochre in there. And I also want to use lots of water because I want the color to be a light yellow. Okay. If I wanted it a little bit warmer, what would I do? I could add some of this quinacridone gold, which if you weren't here earlier, quinacridone gold is a discontinued color. So if you're out on your adventures and you find a tube of quinacridone gold, it's worth a lot of money. Ah, okay, so here I've got a nice warm yellow. This yellow that comes in the set is a yellow light. It's kind of a lemon yellow. It tends toward being a cool yellow. So in order to warm it up a little bit for the light hitting the banana leaves, I've added some of this um, yellow ochre and some of the quinacridone gold. All right, and then that gives me a beautiful color. So the banana leaf, it's going to be 2 swipes. So we've got a nice swipe like this. More water, more water. Okay, so that's the basic shape of the banana leaf, but often banana leaves have little splits in them. So I'm actually going to bring it up and create some splits here. I'm going back over top of the area where I already put paint. And I'm just creating little splits in the banana leaves because that's what happens. They get all splitty. Okay, there we go. Now there was a line right there where I was overlapping, and so I just added a little more color. So there you go. There's a banana leaf right there. If that white in the middle kind of bothers you, add a little more water to your brush and just lightly go over it, and you can see that it sort of covers that over. Okay, plenty of water here, plenty of water. Now, I want to change up the color a little bit. So that's my sort of yellowish leaf. Now I'm going to add just a tiny bit of this light green to it. So it changes up the color just a little bit. And let's bring this one this way. And I'm going to go ahead and add the little breaks as I go this time. And I'm just shaping it as I do it here like this. So I'm creating the shape of the banana leaf. And actually they do sometimes have a stem to them. Let's put a little stem on this one over here. And now I just added a little bit of water, but I'm going to go back into the paint and I'm going to sort of fill this in. So usually what I'm doing is just creating the outline and then going in and filling in the outline. Pretty easy peasy. And then if you want to leave the highlights, a little bit of white in the middle there, you can do that. Or you can, I still have some, not only do I have some of the green here, I still have more yellow here. So I can pick up a little bit of that yellow and actually drop the yellow into that area that was white, right? Just throw a little yellow in there. So lots of fun, lots of fun. We're doing fun watercolor, no stress, no muss. This is all about just exploration and having a good time. Okay, so those are my yellows, assuming that the sun is on those. Now we're going to go get a little bit darker as we go. And I already have some of this Cascade green mixed from earlier, right? So here's some Cascade green, lots of water. And where do I want to put this one? I'll put this one over here. I'm going to do one going this way. And there was just a little bit of yellow, like a little yellow dot on there. Not a problem at all, right? So I'm going behind the one that's in the front. And I'm going to go here. And like that. And it doesn't matter if it goes off the page, all right? So I got a little bit more water. I'm gonna fill this in and then I can drop in more colors. So having a brush like this Velvet Touch from Princeton that has that what I call a snappy tip is very helpful for doing this drawing just with the brush tip. Now I'm going to leave a little bit of white in there that I'm going to drop a little bit of yellow into, pick up a little more green. See, the snappy tip lets me come right up to the line of the other one. There we go. And then here. Don't worry if you leave white space, like next to something like that, that should overlap. I do that all the time. I find it helps to um, really bring attention to the stem there when you're doing an overlap like that. So just leave some white. It's fine. It's fine. More color. Let's get the underside here with a little more color. Let's grab a little bit of that yellow green that we were just playing with and drop that in there. I like when the leaves kind of talk to each other because you're sharing the color mixes with them. Actually, this one, I'm going to drop a little bit more of that green in there. Just as you go, have fun with that. Now this one, to me, looks a little too yellow. Too yellow! So I'm going to drop a little bit of this yellow green in there. So it has a little bit of a green. See how now it has a little bit of a green tint? Let's put a little bit more down this way. There. Now it's a little more and it's going to speak to the other ones. Nice. Okay. So now let's go a little darker over here with in this area. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? I can bring in the oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So this is the hooker green, and the hooker green is a little bit darker, darker green, darker green. But I want to give it that sort of blue-green look to it. So I'm going to bring a little bit of the peacock blue into the hooker green. Yes, there we go. That's more like it. That's why I love the peacock blue. I use it for skies. And I also like to put it in with my greens to give the green sort of a blue-green look to it. Okay, so this should be a little bit darker. Let's just bring this one. Now, often, it's going this way, right? So let's bring this one from here, like this. And I'm going to bring it back behind this one right here. There we go. Nice. And that's actually a little bit darker. Awesome. See how that's darker in there? Now, what I do want to do, let's just do this, sort of filling it in. But as I'm filling it in, I'm going to want to bring some of those other colors in there, right? Like I said, it's okay to leave some white in between. You don't have to butt them up right next to each other. It helps to make this leaf stand out if you leave that little bit of white there. That's a technique that I like to use. Okay, so I'm going to grab a little bit more of the hooker's green here. And then I'm going to grab some more of that yellow, just so they all sort of speak nicely to one another, because they'll all have some of those colors in common. Okay. Oh, fun. All right, so there's another one right there. And I actually want to put like a stem on this one. Now we're creating a little nest to put the other, to put the banana, the hand of bananas into the middle. And then I will do the other leaves that are behind there afterwards. So I build the hand first, the banana hand, and then I go back in and I add more of the leaves. Now I'm seeing that I want to get a little more drama in these greens right here. So let's take a little bit more of this, and I'm just gonna throw in, this was the Cascade green. I'm just putting a little bit more of that in there. So I just put a little Cascade green in with the Hooker's green I was just working with here. More water, more water. So I can just bring some more green in here. I don't like it being too yellow myself. And then I'll just do this. And then I'll do this. So you see how you're just building up layers? It's I think that your artwork will have more interest if you come back in. Don't be too like trying to fill in the whole area. Don't worry about it because you can come back in later and drop in more interest. Okay. There we go. Oh, now they're starting to look more interesting. And actually, I need to get this one looking more interesting. Now, besides adding more paint, you can also pull paint out. That's one of the advantages of having watercolor paper, okay, is that you can pull paint off of it. It's built to be able to withstand that. So I'm going to take my brush, so with just water, and I'm going to come in here and I'm going to pull some of this color out. So do that, pull some of the color out. Now, depending on how staining the color is, sometimes the color comes out and sometimes it doesn't. But you see how the green is starting to lift right here? So that's how you can bring some of the lightness back. And I'm bringing the lightness back so that I can go in there with some more yellow and sort of tie that together with the other ones. Okay, it is darker, but at the same time, it also has some of the same yellow in it as the other ones. All right, now that's fun. Now let's go ahead and build the hand, which is going to be down in here. So what is that? That's the spike that has all the little bananas on it. All right, and so this is these pictures are from Pixabay, and I will put a link to Pixabay in the description of the video on YouTube later tonight or tomorrow. I'll have that up for you. Okay. So if you want to go and find these images, you can print them off for yourself. But this one, you see how it's like the yellow and the green? Isn't that cool? Now I just print these in draft mode on my printer, and that's so that there's I don't use too much ink, but also it just gives me the suggestion of the image and not so much the crisp in it image. Um, let's see. Knocker asks, "You're Bolivian, right?" Nope, I'm American. I am American, and I'm in Florida right now. And so this one, you have a little bit of the darker greens. Now notice, see these banana leaves have little lines on them. So you could always come back later with your detail brush and put little lines on them if you wanted to do that in order to be a little more authentic. But we want to do something like this with some bananas. But I liked this part better on this one. And then I took sort of the idea of the bananas from this one in order to do my painting here. So there's my painting. And so we're gonna do this right now. Okay. Oop, let me put that aside as I'm dropping things. Typical. Okay, so I'm gonna work from this image myself, and I'm gonna paint that. Now, if you weren't comfortable painting it, you can simply draw it first and then paint in your drawing. Okay. But I'm going to live on the wild side, and I'm going to start with some of the, if you look here, you see how this is kind of a brown purpley color. So I'm going to create a brown, And I'm going to do that by taking some of the red. And you see how I put the red in with the red and green will make a brown. Okay. So I had a light green in there, like a yellowy green. And so now what I've got going is a light brown. So we're going to start by drawing this part of it right here. And I'm using that beautiful tip. And I'm just drawing. So get that part of the hand right there. Now I'm just going to drop in some color. See how it's brown? What? I didn't even use the brown in the set, y'all. Inside the set, there are two browns. There is the burnt sienna and the burnt umber, but I did not need that, did I? They're not even on the palette here because you can mix your reds and your greens together and get variations of brown, okay? Which is exactly what I just did. Okay, so now I'm going to, right along this line right here is a little darker where it meets the next one behind it. So I am gonna grab some of this quinacridone gold and a little bit more of this red to create a reddish brown. And I'm just gonna come in here and that's where the two meet. So do you see that? I'm getting a delineating line, right? And now I'm going to actually build this other part right here, which comes down. And it actually comes down a little further like this. So I'm just going to fill that in. So I generally go lighter with my first layer, and then I can always go darker with my subsequent layers, right? So there's that. And then what I noticed is right here, it's darker. It's like the darkest. So let's grab like a dark green. This is the, which color was it? Viridian. And I'm going to put it in there together with the red. So I get some sort of dark color. There we go. So you see how that's giving me a dark, dark, dark color. But it was using that crimson and the Viridian and a little bit of the previous brown that I had mixed. So now I'm going to just go like this and bring it in here. It's like a dark, dark green. And it's okay if your colors blend and mix. It's awesome. Awesome. Fantastic. Let it happen. Okay. So now I'm going to work on this part right up here. So you see how there are these peel back and underneath them are your bananas, your little babies, the little flowers. So I'm going to work on this part right here. And that's going to be much more crimson, right? But it's going to be a combination of crimson and this vermilion. So I'm going to start with that. And it's going to come up like this and come down here, come out here, and then come up here and sort of go like this. So easy peasy, right? Easy peasy lemon squeezy. This is just laying in your first layer. You're going to darken, darken, darken it as you do more layers. So you just want to get the idea of the shape down. Now I'm going to darken it just a little bit more. I'm going to drop in some of that, and it's super dark down here, so I can pick up some of that purple, and I can, remember how I said you can just tap, 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 tap with your brush? So I'm tapping and I'm depositing sort of a darker color right there. All right, and then there's another one across the back, and I'm going to grab some of this other dark green here, but I still want it to be sort of burgundy-ish. And this comes along here. And it's going to come up here like this. I'm going to be changing the colors as I move along, okay? So that's another piece right there. I actually want to drop some more of that in there and maybe drop a little bit of it in here. All right, so we're building that. And then, so you want to work in areas and let them dry. Like for instance, this is dry. So I can come back to this area now and start to define that more. And it's got a kind of a purpley hue to it. So I'm gonna put some purple right over top of that. And how did I get the purple? If you were watching earlier, the purple was this crimson plus a little bit of this, which blue, cobalt blue, and it gave me a purple. Okay, so let me do that again. A little bit of the cobalt blue that's in this set right here comes in this set. So both of these colors come in that set. So I'm putting the cobalt blue and then I'm grabbing a little bit of the crimson and then ta-da, just like that, you get a purple. Easy peasy. Fast, 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 fast. Okay. And it's the darkest right here where the two meet. Right now it's a little bit too wet. And so I'm just giving the idea that there are some lines in there. And then I'm going to take that same color and put it over top of this kind of brownish color in the background. Okay. So I'm just giving the hint that there are lines on there like that. The beautiful thing is if I go later, oh, I don't like those strong lines. I just come in with a little bit of water and soften my lines. The reason those lines are sharp right there is because the background was dry and I was using the tip of my brush. So if I want to soften the lines, I'm just coming in with a little bit of water on my brush, throwing a little bit of water on there and letting that soften that. So that'll soften up those lines a little bit. Okay. Um, now I want this part right down here to be a little bit darker. It's a little too wet still. So it won't, it's not getting darker. Okay, and I actually want to lift some of this color out and go with a little more vermilion here. Yeah, this is all still too wet. So every time I put more color in there, it's just, it's all going together. So it's really important to be able to wait and let your colors settle. Okay, I'm going to come in with some more. I'm going to use crimson and vermilion, and I'm going to create a red, right? Because the crimson and the vermilion make a red. And I'm going to use that red on to darken this. There we go. And I'm also going to use it on here. There we go. So we've got a darker version because it depends on what it goes on top of, right? Now, I need some really dark right in here, but it's a little early. So sometimes you don't want it to be completely dry, but you do need it to be a little bit dry. Let's create something. How do you create black? If you don't have black on your palette, how do you create a black or a color similar to black? You use all three of the primary colors, okay, to create a black. So you would use a magenta and a blue and a yellow. But instead of using this bright yellow, I'm going to use the more muted yellow here. And so let's do that. We're going to put some crimson up here. Right, you see that? Crimson is going to act as our magenta red. And then we're going to use some of the cobalt blue. Oops, a big blob of it got up there. Already we've got like a dark, 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 dark purple, right? And now, okay, I'm going to ruin that, but that's the way it goes. I can always clean it out. And, ooh, look how strong that was. That yellow was so strong. See how it creates like a gray? because those were the three primaries. And now I have a, let me show you the gray. Hold on a second. Right? Don't we have this pad over here that has the color mixes we were working with? See how it's like a blue gray? Yep. That's how you mix yourself a black or a gray. Now there was a little bit more blue in the brush. So let me just add a little bit more crimson in there. So that's a dark version of our crimson. Okay. You see there? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that and I'm just going to drop this in here before it gets too dry. And the reason I'm doing that is if you look at this picture right here, you can see there's a shadow right there because of the shape of it. All right. And then this, there's a little bit of a shadow up in here. So that's how you kind of create those darks. All right, cool. Cool, cool, cool. And then I'm going to come in and I'm going to start putting the bananas in. All right, let's see what time it is. 7:35. Okay, cool. Christina Hare. Hello, hello on YouTube. Welcome in, welcome in. Now, see, I want this to have more of a line right here. So let's see if now that this is a little more dry, let's see if I can make that happen. I need a little bit more vermilion there. And I just want this to be a little bit more like it is. Oh, let's just put a glaze. There we go. Put a glaze there. Nice. Okay. So I will, when I'm working on a painting, I'll work back and forth, back and forth, back and forth on it. Now here I just relied on the browns. I actually was using a different color of brown or a different type of paint when I was working on this one. And now what we want to do is we want to put ourselves some little banana flowers out here. So you see this right here? Oh, they're so cute. So I'm going to use the smaller brush instead of my number 10. I'm going to now move over to the number 6. Get some clean water on there. And I want to put some little flowers here. So I'm actually going to use some of the yellow and where do I have to put it? Now I'm just using a damp paper towel and I'm going to go in here and give myself some more room here for color mixing. And that I had mentioned before, this is a ceramic palette, so it makes it a little bit easier to clean up. I'm preserving a little bit of that dark just in case I need it, just in case, but I've got some yellow on there. But that yellow is like too in your face yellow. So I'm gonna grab a little bit of the yellow ochre, right? And then that warmifies the yellow and makes it not quite so, bright and in your face. Okay, so now to put in the little flowers that turn into bananas, I'm just gonna dot. Just gonna make dots. That's all. Just making dots here. That's all you have to do. Now, I'm not quite done yet, but there are the dots. That's the flower dots. It helps if this part is dry because then you can put dots on top of there. And if you want the dots to show up on top of there, you throw a little bit of this white that came in the set of 12. You throw a little bit of white in there. Let me show you again. Here's this Holbein watercolor set of 12. So there's a Chinese white in there, and that's what I have here. And the reason you want that is so that you can make your colors sit on top of the other dry colors. So I'm going to show you that in just a second here. See how it's now sitting on top of that dark background, okay? Because I added that little bit of white in there. Now, the base of the banana flowers are actually little itty bitty bananas, little teeny tiny things. Oh, they're so cute, but they're not yellow yet. If you notice here, see how they turn green. They start out kind of brownish yellow, then they turn green, and then they turn yellow. So what I'm going to do to create my little bitty bananas is I'm going to use some of the yellow ochre. So the yellow ochre color, and I'm just going to come in here and create little bananas, little baby bananas that are attached to those flowers. Now, if I wanted it to show up better, what would I do? Add a little bit of the white. So they're kind of tan looking. And then when I put the bananas in there, they show up a little bit better on that background. There we go. So there are your bananas and the little yellow flowers at the end. And then we're going to put some bananas up here. So the first thing is, you see how this comes down from the banana plant? That's what holds the hands of bananas. Okay. And here you can see it again here. And then you've got the bananas forming here. So I'm just going to take my larger brush. Now I'm going back to the size 10, and I want to create right here that part where this is the end, right? So I'm gonna let's take some of this hooker green and maybe some of this light green. Oh, that's too light. Okay, then I'll grab a little bit of vermilion. There we go. That's better. Oh, why don't I put a little bit of the Cascade green? There we go. So you'll notice that I'm constantly mixing in between my colors to get a color that I feel comfortable with. Now, if I'm not sure what the color is going to look like going onto the surface, I have my handy dandy cheapo, right? Cheap watercolor paper here, and I can just put the color on there and go, ooh, okay, I want it to be more yellow than that. Actually, I'm going to use a little bit of I used a little bit of the yellow ochre, okay, to get a little warmer color, because that color looks too unnatural. Unnatural. I don't like that. But that's why I have a piece of paper off to the side so I can test. Okay, so we are going to just go like this and create that uh, part that comes down that has the bananas on it. And then there are little bits that stick out like this with some of the bananas, like that. And then some over here, like that. Okay. Now, some of the bananas are going to be young bananas. So I'm going to mix some of this green with a little bit of that other yellow that I had for the banana flowers. And I'm just going to use my brush. See how the tip of the brush sort of goes like this? So I'm going to use that, and I'm going to create a banana and just bring it up in here. And then I'm going to do another banana here. So those are sticking back behind, but now I'm going to do a banana here, and I'm going to turn it because I want to get the tip so that the banana goes like this. So it kind of has a little bit of a curve to it. Okay. And then let me do another banana here and another banana here. Okay. And then I'm going to grab some more green and yellow, and I'm going to put another banana out here, just swiping it up. You can make it a little bit more rounded if you prefer, but they're going to be in little bunches, right? They're coming off in little bunches. Now, the ends of the bananas have these little brown dots on them because they actually they just came from the flowers right here. And so they turn into little brown dots. And what I do is I'll just come into here. I'm going to switch from the big brush to the size 6. And I need to have some brown. So remember, I had some brown already going up in here. What was that? It was that yellow plus a little bit of the crimson plus some of the green, right? Made this little bit of brown. And now I'm going to put little bits on the end of my bananas and on the end of some of these branches where they were already cut off. But this actually had a flower on the end that's now just brown. So let me put a little bit more there and a little bit more here. Oh, there's our bananas. Oh my goodness. And then that one was one that was cut off. Okay, so that's the idea of the bananas there. Now I'm going to show you here. Mine look a little more like light yellow green. So what I do is I'll come back in with some yellow, some of the yellow, and drop some of the yellow in there because the bananas are going to look sort of yellowish green. There we go. So just make sure there's a little bit of yellow in there. Just dropping that in right over top of it. Okay, so now we've got a little more yellow green going on there. All right, so now normally I would sit here and work more on this part down here, but right now we're going to move along. We're going to move along because I want to get another leaf or two into the background. Okay, and this I just do very simply. Now I'm looking at this composition and I'm thinking, ooh, I probably should have moved this down a little bit more. Just looking at it right now. But, you know, it can help if you take your mat. So let me grab, hold on a second. I have the mats right here. Let's try not to have everything fall. So we take the mat, right? And put it on there to see like where we can do this. Yeah, that actually looks fine, doesn't it? Looks fine. So there it is with the mat on it. That looks good. It'll look just perfectly fine. All right, cool. I did all right. So now what I'll do is build in some of these other leaves in the background, which are going to be darker, right? So we're going to work with the hooker green. And I might throw, remember I said this Prussian blue is good for when you want to create drama and shadows. And it can work either adding it to the crimson or adding it to your greens, adding it to the yellow. It's going to make things dark. The Prussian blue. Oh, it's fabulous. Look at that color mix. Nice and dark. So now we're going to work on the background here a little bit. And we're just going to create some more leaves. So let's say that we have a leaf coming in here. It's already like this here. Like, and then here. I'll put that there. It's going to come down and it's going behind this one. And it's a little darker, right? So we're just going to do the same thing that we did with the other leaves. We're going to start filling it in, adding more water to get some variation here. Now, of course, where it's behind the other leaf, I want it to be even darker, don't I? So right here, where it's behind the other leaf, let's do this. I want it to start coming out here. Start coming out here. But I want to drop in some of that darker right in here. because I want it to be, okay, so tap, 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 tap to get the dark, right? Bring the dark in there. And bring some more variety. Now, how am I going to get some more variety to talk to these other leaves? I'm going to grab some more of that yellow mix that I had earlier and then just feather it in, right? Make sure I have more yellow in there. And that way, so I'm constantly reusing the colors that I had on there so that everybody talks to each other. There we go. Woo. Okay. Oh, that's fun. So there's one. And then let's take another one. I want it to be a little more with the cascade, like blue green. See the blue green there from the cascade? So let's, this is also dark. Let's imagine that this leaf is going where? Where? Back behind, back behind here. So I'm gonna bring it up here like this. And then bring it there. Oh, look at me. Not unusual for me to be getting paint everywhere. So let's clean that up before I get too far along. And there was some blue on here. I'm just going to wipe it up. I'm not going to worry about it because it's way out over the edge. I don't really have to worry about it. Okay. And then let's say that this, imagine that it continues like this and then it comes over this way. And then it's going to come off here, right? I'm going to come off this way. So I'm just going to drop it in the back here. The darkest part, I want to be underneath here, right? Tap, 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 tap. So the parts that are near the other leaves are going to be the darkest. So I'm going to tap there to deposit lots of paint. And then I can drag. Dook. All right. Tap, tap. Nice thing about this tip, I can come right in there and just get really precise and just tap it in. Tap, 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 tap. Get the dark. Get the dark. Woo. And then let's bring it around here. I'm leaving a little bit of white there. Tap, tap, tap to get the darkness. And let's do this. Woo. Okay, a little bit more, bring it in. Now I can see I'm gonna have to add some yellow here because it's quite blue. That's why I leave, see how I leave some white spots? That's so I can come back in with like this yellowy green here. Ah, and I can just swipe and deposit that and it'll really show up with those white spots, right? And that just ties it together. Nice. Oh, isn't that fun? So that is now, I would normally go back and build some more leaves in there, maybe go with lighter leaves where they're behind the bananas. So that's like here. You can see on this one, hold on. You look on this one, see how I put a really light leaf in the background? So I could highlight the kind of yellowy green of the ones here. So I will do that off camera and show you that next week. I'll show you this piece finished next week. Um, so that is it for the banana part, but let's go back to the Anthurium. No, so pretty, which is now dry, right? So the Anthurium are dry. These were the flowers that if you weren't here earlier, I'm working from this book, which is DIY Watercolor Jungle, and I will have this linked in the description of the YouTube video later tonight or tomorrow morning. And it will also be, there'll be a link to it in the article that I write for this workshop, which will be on my website on Tuesday or Wednesday, and you'll be able to find the link to my website in the description of the video when I put that up there. But here we had, besides the banana leaves, we have the, hold on, am I there yet? Not quite there yet. The Anthurium. Okay, so she shows you how to do it in the book. Love this book. Love, love, love. I love all my art books, don't I? So now what we're going to do is we're going to work on this area right here. This is also an Anthurium is a good plant for Valentine's Day because the leaves have kind of a heart shape. They're beautiful. All right, so let's I'm going to put a type of yellow, like just a barely there yellow. So I'm going to use this Chinese white and pick up just a little bit of yellow with the Chinese white. Oh, that is too bright yellow. So how do I tone that down? I come in here and I grab some of the um, yellow ochre, and it immediately helps to tone it down. So let's do that again. A little bit more of the yellow ochre. Nice. More white. I want more white, more white. Okay. So I'm going to get some extra water on my brush. Tap it off. I don't want it to be too wet. Okay. And now I can come in here and I can build this part of the Anthurium. Now there's a color called Naples yellow that it's what we call a convenience color. That means you can just squeeze it right out of a tube. It's called Naples yellow, and it's very similar to this color that I just mixed. And that is your bright yellow, like a lemon yellow, your yellow ochre, and some white. That'll give you a color that looks like Naples yellow. I love Naples yellow. And but if you're sensitive to chemicals, Naples yellow is toxic. So you have to be careful how you use it. Oh, there we go. That's the start of it. And let's get some more of that color. And we'll come in here with this. And I'm going to make it sort of like a bulbous at the bottom here. I'm just going to drop that in. Now I'm going to darken this. The ones in the back are I'm going to darken them just a little bit. But I'm going to put my first layer in first. Isn't that fun? Oh, so much fun. So much fun. Okay, here we go. Right here. All right. Like that. Can you see that okay? There, I think that put it back up. Yeah. Make sure I'm in frame and not out of frame. Sorry if I was out of frame. Okay, so that's a good base color. Now, I'm going to go in with a little bit of, see the brown that we made earlier? That's why I don't clean up all my colors right away, because I can go back and I can pick up some of that brown and use it to get a little bit of extra dimension. So where's the extra dimension going to need to go? At the bottom, right here, as part of the shadow, right? Just to give it a little bit of extra dimension there. Even here on this one. Now, instead of using the shadow color that I had on there, you might want to use the burnt sienna, which is a color that was in the tubes here. Let me show you right here. There's a color in here called burnt sienna, right here, this one. And, or this one, which is burnt umber. Either one of those would work well also for the shadowing. I just happen to be using what's already on my palette here. I want to make the color looks a little bit gray right now, so I want to add in a little bit of that red, the same color red that's in the flowers, and then that'll give me a kind of grayish brown gray. Here we go. We're going to put a shadow in here as well, just like that. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to use a little bit of water. And with the water, I'm going to blend that shadow. Okay. So here we go. I gave it a little bit of dimension, but now I'm going to sort of blend it by adding a little bit of water and just sort of letting it blend in a little bit with the yellow. Okay. So that you get not only with the yellow, but also blend in a little bit with the orange background. And if there's too much water, just use your paper towel, pick it up a little bit. It's okay. There. That way it sort of blends into the background instead of having a sharp line. We just want it to look like it's rounded. There we go. Shadow, shadow. And the same with this one, so that it's not too straight a line. There we go. Let the water help. There we go. So now we have some shadowing going on in there. Woo! And it is running, 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 running. But I'm going to pick it up with a paper towel. Okay. Now, these little stamen that are sticking out of the flowers generally have a little bit of, they have dots on them. And you know what? I am going to get out the burnt sienna for this one. So this one right here is the burnt sienna. It's kind of a beautiful browny, uh, brown, like a reddish brown. And I'm just going to stick it right in there where the crimson lake was. Okay, or the crimson color. I'm constantly dipping this off. Let's get some of that beautiful color brown. Now, I don't want my brush to be too wet right now because I want the dots to go on and sort of sit right on top. I don't want them blending in too much, okay? So you don't want to put them in an area where there's too much water because otherwise they'll just disperse. But this yellow part at the top is dry and we don't want too much water on the brush. There we go. We just want to put some dots. Now I could have used a little bit of the crimson and the vermilion together to get a kind of a brown and done it like that. But hey, this way you get to see another one of the colors from the palette. And then let's do not too much water. Let's do this one. Because you'll notice that the this part of the Anthurium is very textured. So I'm just using the tip of that brush. Ah, there we go. Nice. Isn't that fun? Thanks for everybody who's spending their Sunday evening with me. I do appreciate you. Ah, there we go. Now, normally I would come in with my detail brush or the smaller brush, and I would work on those leaves a little bit. So let's say, for instance, I might grab some of this hooker's green and come in and using the tip of the brush, I can define the leaves a little bit better, like that, or not. You know, you don't have to do this finishing part. I like to define the leaves, and you don't have to keep all of the paint on the inside there. Plus, if you want to, you can do the lines here and just do a little bit of this. Just sort of bring that in so you get a little bit of definition out of it. Let's see, I need to hold my brush in a different way. Get those nice thin lines. So it's okay if there's white. If there's white along there, it's fine. In your leaves. Don't be afraid of leaving white. It shows that it's a painting and not maybe AI or something. If you creatively use the white in your painting. Okay, so that is it for the workshop. Oh, see a painting like this, I would then take my mat and I would look at it like that and go, okay, how's that looking? How's that looking? Move it around a little bit. Fun. See, something like that. So once you put the mat on it, you can kind of get a feel for, oh, do I want to add more leaves down here? How do I want to arrange it so that the painting makes more sense and it doesn't cover up too much of the anthurium flowers like that. Isn't that fun? Now, anthurium do have little lines on them. And so that's something that I might come back later. Hey, thanks, Florida Glass Girl. I might come back later and add that in, at a later time after this is fully dry. I could put those little lines in. If the lines were too, if I felt like they were just too garish, then I would go ahead and use a wet brush, right? Over top of it in order to just soften those lines a little bit. But I hope you enjoyed this workshop. So pretty. Thank you, Annette Collects and Sells. I appreciate it. I will have links to this Holbein set of 12 watercolors, as well as the additional colors here that I included in the palette. I'll have the palette linked, and the other supplies that we used will be linked in the description of the video.